Crash in a dress is still trash, Brittany growls, her voice dripping with venom in a crowded Los Angeles restaurant. Aaliyah, calm in a sleek blue dress, locks eyes with her. The air crackles as Brittany, fueled by resentment, conspires with Kayla to sabotage Aaliyah's high-stakes dinner with investors. Will their evil plan succeed, or will Aaliyah turn their trap into victory? Immerse yourself in a gripping tale of betrayal and resilience that will grip you to the core. Love suspenseful drama? Hit the subscribe button to see our latest stories. And comment where you're watching, Tokyo, Chicago, or wherever. Can Aaliyah outsmart her enemies? What drives Brittany's ruthless revenge? Tune in to discover the shocking twists that will leave you reeling. Join Aaliyah in her epic battle. The Los Angeles sunrise painted the skyline in hues of gold and amber, its first rays glinting off the towering glass facade of Skyline Construct's headquarters. The skyscraper stood as a monument to ambition, its sleek lines and shimmering panels whispering promises of power and prestige. At precisely 8:30 a.m., Aaliyah Washington stepped out of a chauffeured black sedan, her heels clicking with purpose on the polished marble plaza. At 32, she was the newly appointed strategic advisor to Skyline Constructs, a titan in the architectural world. Her role was not just a job, but a mandate to steer the company's vision, shape its culture, and cement its legacy. Today, she was to attend a pivotal strategy summit, her first major appearance in this exalted position, and the weight of expectation hung heavy in the air. Aaliyah adjusted the lapels of her tailored navy blazer, its deep hue complementing the crisp white blouse beneath. Her natural curls were swept into an elegant high bun, each strand meticulously in place, a testament to her unyielding discipline. Her eyes, sharp and discerning, scanned the bustling plaza, executives in bespoke suits, interns clutching coffee cups, and security personnel standing sentinel. She carried a leather portfolio embossed with her initials, a subtle nod to her authority. As she approached the revolving glass doors, a doorman tipped his cap with a deferential nod. "Good morning, Ms. Washington," he said, his voice warm. Aaliyah returned a gracious smile, her poise unshakable, yet her pulse quickened. This was her moment to shine, to prove she belonged at the apex of corporate power. Inside the grand atrium was a cathedral of opulence. Marble floors gleamed, under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, their prisms casting rainbows across towering pillars. A cascading water feature murmured in the center, its rhythmic trickle a counterpoint to the hum of conversation. Business magnates and industry leaders mingled, their voices a low buzz of deals and aspirations. Digital screens embedded in the walls flashed renderings of futuristic skyscrapers, each a testament to Skyline's dominance. Aaliyah's heart swelled with pride. She was no mere guest here. She was an architect of the company's future. Her strategic insights had already influenced boardroom decisions, and today's summit would showcase her vision to an audience of global stakeholders. She made her way toward the reception desk, a sleek slab of obsidian manned by a team in crisp uniforms. At its helm stood Brittany Coleman, a statuesque woman with platinum blonde hair pulled into a severe chignon. Her smile was practiced, her eyes cool as they flicked over the crowd. Aaliyah approached, her steps measured, and presented her invitation, a taubit, luxurious card on silk paper, embossed with gold foil and bearing the unmistakable signature of Marcus Langston, the CEO. "Good morning," Aaliyah said, her voice clear and professional. "I'm Aaliyah Washington, here for the Strategy Summit. At 9 a.m., Brittany's gaze lingered on the invitation, her lips pursing ever so slightly. For a fleeting moment, recognition flickered in her eyes, but it was quickly smothered by a veneer of indifference. "Let me check," she replied, her tone clipped, almost mechanical. Her fingers hovered over a tablet, but instead of scanning the guest list, she turned to a man who had just approached, a white executive in a pinstripe suit, his demeanor reeking of entitlement. "Mr. Hargrove, right this way, sir," Brittany chirped, her smile blooming as she unhooked a velvet rope to usher him toward the VIP elevators. Aaliyah's brow furrowed, but she held her composure, her mother's words echoing in her mind. Never let their prejudice steal your power. She waited, her portfolio clutched firmly as Brittany continued to prioritize others. A tech mogul in casual denim was waved through with a laugh. A silver-haired consultant, arriving after Aaliyah, was escorted with deference. Each snub was a silent dagger, yet Aaliyah stood tall, her posture a fortress against the growing sting of exclusion. 5 minutes passed, 5 minutes that felt like an eternity in the cavernous atrium. The clock above the reception desk ticked. Toward 8:55, the summit looming. Aaliyah's patience, though vast, was not infinite. She stepped forward again, her voice steady but edged with steel. "Ms. Coleman, I need confirmation now. I'm the strategic advisor, and my meeting is critical." Brittany's eyes snapped up, a flicker of disdain crossing her face. "Strategic advisor?" she said, her tone laced with skepticism. "I haven't been informed of someone like you." The words hung heavy, their implication as sharp as a blade. Before Aaliyah could respond, another receptionist, Kayla, sidled up, her smirk barely concealed. "Probably thinks that fancy suit makes her a VIP, Kayla muttered, loud enough for Aaliyah to hear. The two women exchanged a glance, their laughter a cruel symphony that echoed in the marble expanse. Heads turned, whispers rippling through the crowd like a gathering storm. Aaliyah's jaw tightened, but her expression remained a mask of calm. The humiliation burned, a familiar ache from years of navigating spaces where her brilliance was questioned because of her skin. Yet she refused to falter. Her mother's voice rang clearer now. "You don't demand respect. You demonstrate." Duty, she reached into her portfolio, her movements deliberate, and retrieved her phone. Her fingers hovered over Marcus Langston's number, a silent promise of reckoning. But she paused, her gaze locking onto Brittany's smug face. This was not just a personal slight. It was a test of her authority, a challenge to her place in this gilded world. The atrium's grandeur seemed to close in, the chandelier's light now harsh, the water feature's murmur mocking. Aaliyah stood at the precipice of her destiny, every eye in the room a silent judge. Would she bow to this indignity, or would she rise unyielding to claim her rightful place? The answer lay in her next move, a choice that would echo far beyond. The marble walls of Skyline Constructs. The atrium of Skyline Constructs buzzed with the electric hum of ambition, but for Aaliyah Washington, it had become a battlefield. The towering marble pillars and cascading chandeliers, once symbols of her ascent, now loomed like silent witnesses to her humiliation. She stood before the obsidian reception desk, her navy blazer immaculate, her leather portfolio a shield against the growing tide of indignity. The clock above ticked relentlessly, 8:55 a.m., just 5 minutes until the strategy summit that would define her tenure as strategic advisor. Brittany Coleman, the platinum blonde receptionist, had dismissed her, with a sneer, prioritizing lesser guests with infuriating ease. Aaliyah's patience, forged in years of navigating corporate prejudice, was a taut wire, ready to snap. Brittany's eyes, cold as winter frost, flicked back to Aaliyah, her lips curling into a smile that was more weapon than welcome. "Still, here," she said, her voice a saccharine blade. "I told you I'm checking." But her fingers remained idle, the tablet before her a prop in a cruel performance. Aaliyah's breath caught, the sting of dismissal sharper than she'd anticipated. She was no stranger to microaggressions, the sidelong glances, the questioning of her credentials. But this was different. This was public, deliberate, a gauntlet thrown in the heart of her own domain. Around her, the atrium pulsed with activity. A tech entrepreneur in a casual blazer was ushered through the velvet ropes with a nod. A silver-haired consultant, his briefcase swinging, breezed past with a chuckle shared with Brittany. Each guest's passage was a silent rebuke, a reminder of the hierarchy that still sought to cage her. Aaliyah's grip on her portfolio tightened, her knuckles paling. Her mother's words, a mantra through countless trials, whispered in her mind, "You don't demand respect, you demonstrate it." But demonstration required an audience, and here, she was rendered invisible. She stepped closer to the desk, her heels clicking on the marble with a rhythm that demanded attention. "Ms. Coleman," she said, her voice low but laced with steel. "I need confirmation now. I'm Aaliyah Washington, strategic advisor to Skyline Constructs, and my summit begins in 5 minutes." Her words were precise, each syllable a brick in the wall of her authority. The air thickened, a ripple of curiosity passing through the nearby crowd. A few executives paused, their murmurs fading as they sensed a storm brewing. Brittany's smile faltered, but only for a heartbeat. She leaned forward, her elbows resting on the desk, her gaze raking over Aaliyah with blatant disdain. "Strategic advisor?" she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "Really? I haven't been informed of someone like you." The phrase landed like a slap, its venom unmistakable. The word "someone" was a dog whistle, a coded dismissal of Aaliyah's race, her presence, her very right to stand there. A murmur rippled through the onlookers, some shifting uncomfortably, others leaning in, drawn to the spectacle. Before Aaliyah could respond, Kayla, the second receptionist, sauntered over, her smirk a mirror of Brittany's malice. "Oh, please," Kayla said, loud enough to carry across the atrium. "She probably thinks that fancy suit makes her a VIP. Wrong building, sweetheart." The word "sweetheart" was a barb, and Kayla's laugh, a sharp, grating cackle, sliced through the air. Brittany joined in, their laughter a duet of derision that echoed off the marble walls. Heads turned, eyes wide, as the atrium became a stage for Aaliyah's public shaming. The humiliation was a physical weight pressing against Aaliyah's chest, threatening to crack her composure. She felt the gazes of the crowd, some pitying, some amused, all judging. Her mind flashed to a childhood memory, standing in a schoolyard, mocked for her second-hand clothes, yet rising above with a quiet dignity that silenced her tormentors. That same dignity surged now, a fire in her veins. She straightened, her shoulders squaring, her eyes locking onto Brittany's with an intensity that made the receptionist flinch. "Ms. Coleman, Miss Kayla," Aaliyah said, her voice steady, each word a deliberate strike. "You've made a grave mistake. My position was personally appointed by Marcus Langston. You will confirm my invitation, or you'll answer to him." Her tone was calm, but it carried the weight of a guillotine, a promise of consequences. The crowd hushed, the air crackling with anticipation. Brittany's smirk wavered, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face, but she doubled down, her pride too brittle to bend. "Answer to him?" Brittany scoffed, tossing her hair. "I don't know who you think you are, but we don't just let anyone waltz into the VIP summit." Kayla nodded, emboldened, her arms crossed. "Yeah, take a seat over there," she said, gesturing to a row of leather chairs meant for lesser guests. The insult was blatant, a public stripping of Aaliyah's authority, and the crowd's whispers grew louder, a chorus of speculation. Aaliyah's heart pounded, but her face remained a mask of resolve. She could feel the weight of history in this moment, the countless times her ancestors had faced such slights and stood taller. Her hand slipped into her portfolio, fingers brushing her phone. Marcus Langston's number was a tap away, a lifeline to justice. But she hesitated, her gaze sweeping the atrium, taking in the faces of those who watched her struggle. This was more than a personal affront. It was a challenge to her legacy, a test of whether she could bend the world to her will. Through a clock struck 8:57, the summit's start looming like a thunderhead. Aaliyah's eyes narrowed, a decision crystallizing. She would not be diminished, not here, not now. With a slow, deliberate movement, she raised her phone, her thumb hovering over the call button. The atrium seemed to hold its breath, every eye fixed on her, waiting for the spark that would ignite the storm. The atrium of Skyline Constructs was a crucible, its marble expanse amplifying every whisper, every glance, every heartbeat. Aaliyah Washington stood at the epicenter, her navy blazer a stark contrast to the pale stone beneath her feet. The clock above the obsidian reception desk read 8:57 a.m., each tick a hammer blow against her dwindling time. The strategy summit loomed, but Aaliyah's battle was here, in the glare of Brittany Coleman's disdain and Kayla's mocking smirk. Their laughter still echoed, a venomous chorus that had stripped her of dignity before a crowd of onlookers. Yet Aaliyah's resolve was iron, forged in a lifetime of defying those who sought to diminish her. Her hand gripped her phone, thumb poised over Marcus Langston's number. A lifeline, a weapon, a declaration of her unyielding authority as strategic advisor. Brittany leaned back, her platinum chignon catching the chandelier's light, her eyes glinting with defiance. "Take a seat," she repeated, her voice a taunt, gesturing to the leather chairs reserved for nobodies. Kayla snickered, arms crossed, her confidence bolstered by Brittany's audacity. The crowd, executives, consultants, interns, watched with bated breath, their murmurs a low hum of anticipation. Aaliyah's pulse thundered, but her face was a mask of calm, her mother's words a beacon. Han Jong Sinoy Taikon. She would not be relegated to the sidelines, not in the empire she helped shape. With a slow, deliberate movement, she raised her phone, her gaze never leaving Brittany's. The air crackled, a storm about to break. "I'm done waiting," Aaliyah said, her voice low, resonant, slicing through the atrium's din. "You've had your chance to do your job." She tapped the screen, activating the speakerphone, and the dial tone echoed like a gavel. Brittany's smirk faltered, a shadow of doubt crossing her face. Kayla shifted, her bravado wavering. The crowd leaned in, the weight of the moment pressing against them all. After 2 rings, a voice boomed through the speaker, warm yet commanding. "Aaliyah, where are you? The summit's about to start. We need you up here." Marcus Langston's voice was a thunderclap, reverberating off the marble walls. Brittany froze, her tablet slipping slightly in her hands. Kayla's eyes widened, her smirk evaporating. Aaliyah's lips curved into a faint, steely smile. "I'm in the main atrium, Marcus," she said, her tone even but laced with purpose. "But your receptionists seem to think I've wandered to the wrong building." Her words were a blade, precise and unyielding, cutting through the pretense of Brittany's authority. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath as the gravity of her statement sank in. Marcus's voice turned to ice. "The wrong building? Who said that? Put them on now." The command was absolute, a CEO's wrath unleashed. Aaliyah extended the phone toward Brittany, her eyes burning with quiet triumph. "Ms. Coleman," she said, her voice soft but lethal, "your boss would like a word." Brittany's face drained of color, her hands trembling as she took the phone, her earlier bravado crumbling like ash. Kayla stepped back, her bravado replaced by panic, her eyes darting for an escape that didn't exist. "Mr. Langston, sir," Brittany stammered, her voice a fragile thread. "We were just checking thoroughly to ensure security." Her words were a desperate plea, but Marcus cut her off, his tone a guillotine. "Checking thoroughly? You insulted my strategic advisor, the woman driving our company's future? Brittany Coleman, and whoever's with you. You're both fired. Effective immediately. Clear out by noon, or security will escort you." The twee pronouncement echoed, a death knell for their careers. Brittany's tablet clattered to the desk, her eyes glistening with shock. Kayla clutched her arm, whispering, "Britt, what do we do?" But Brittany was beyond answering, her world unraveling. Aaliyah lowered the phone, her expression serene yet unyielding. The crowd was silent, their earlier whispers replaced by awe. A security officer, alerted by the commotion, approached, his radio crackling with orders. Brittany and Kayla turned to Aaliyah, their faces a mask of desperation. "Ms. Washington," Brittany said, her voice quivering. "It was a misunderstanding. Please, we didn't mean—" Aaliyah raised a hand, silencing her. "You meant every word," she said, her tone devoid of malice but heavy with truth. "You chose to humiliate me, Now you face the consequences. The velvet rope, once a barrier, was unhooked by a trembling intern who gestured toward the VIP elevators. Aaliyah adjusted her portfolio, her movements deliberate, each step a reclamation of her power. The crowd parted, their eyes following her with a mix of respect and fear. Brittany's whispered threat, "She'll pay for this," reached Aaliyah's ears as she approached the elevator, but she didn't flinch. The words were hollow, the last gasp of a defeated foe. Kayla's shoulders slumped, her earlier laughter a distant memory. As the elevator doors slid open, Aaliyah stepped inside, the golden light bathing her in a halo of authority. The atrium, with its chandeliers and marble, seemed smaller now, its grandeur no match for her resolve. The doors closed, sealing away Brittany and Kayla's disgrace. But Aaliyah's mind was already on the summit. She had faced the fire and emerged unscathed, her authority not just intact but amplified. The call had been her sword, and she had wielded it with precision. Whatever lay ahead, she was ready, a force no prejudice could contain. The Los Angeles night shimmered with promise, its skyline a constellation of ambition mirrored in the glass walls of Le Ciel, an upscale restaurant perched atop a downtown tower. Inside, the air was thick with the clink of crystal and the murmur of power brokers sealing deals over candlelit tables. Aaliyah Washington, resplendent in a sleek black dress that hugged her frame, sat at the head of a private dining alcove. Her role as strategic advisor to Skyline Constructs had brought her here, dining with Ethan Carter, a charismatic tech CEO, and a cadre of investors whose capital could propel her company's next venture. Her laughter, warm and confident, mingled with the soft jazz drifting through the room, but beneath her poise lay a vigilance honed by weeks of triumph and trial. 3 weeks had passed since Aaliyah's clash in the Skyline atrium, where she'd dismantled Brittany and Kayla's prejudice. With a single call to Marcus Langston, their disgrace was a fading echo, their names now cautionary tales among the company's ranks. Yet, as Aaliyah raised a glass to toast a promising partnership, a shadow stirred in the restaurant's periphery. Brittany Coleman, her platinum, hair tucked under a server's cap, moved through the tables with a tray of wine. Beside her, Kayla, her smirk barely concealed, balanced a stack of menus. Their eyes locked on Aaliyah, burning with a resentment that had festered since their expulsion. Tonight, they saw a chance for revenge. Brittany leaned close to Kayla in a dimly lit corner, her whisper sharp as a blade. "She thinks she's untouchable," she hissed, her gaze darting to Aaliyah's table. "Let's see how she handles." "A public humiliation." Kayla nodded, her fingers tightening around a menu. They'd secured jobs at Le Ciel through a friend, a temporary gig that now offered a stage for their vendetta. Kayla, with a connection to the sous chef, had devised a plan. Slip a potent allergen, shrimp extract, into Aaliyah's entree, disguised as a kitchen error. The resulting spectacle, they hoped, would ruin Aaliyah's composure and credibility before her elite guests. As the server delivered appetizers, Aaliyah's instincts prickled. She noticed Brittany's fleeting glance, the way Kayla lingered near the kitchen pass. Her years of navigating corporate minefields had sharpened her senses, and something felt off. When the main course arrived, a seared scallops dish for Aaliyah, meticulously ordered to avoid her known allergies, she caught a faint, unfamiliar scent. Her fork hovered, her eyes narrowing. "Excuse me," she said, her voice calm but commanding, beckoning the server. "Could you confirm the ingredients in this?" The server, a nervous young man, stammered, I'll check with the chef." Ethan, seated beside her, raised an eyebrow, sensing her unease. The server returned, his face flushed. "There's been a mistake, ma'am. The sauce, it contains shrimp extract. We'll replace it immediately." Aaliyah's pulse quickened, but her expression remained serene. "A mistake?" she said, her tone deceptively soft. "I specified. No allergens. This could have been dangerous." The investors exchanged glances, their murmurs tinged with concern. Ethan, his jaw tightening, leaned toward the restaurant manager who'd hurried over, sensing a crisis. "This isn't just mix-up," Ethan said, his voice low but firm. "I want to know how this happened." The manager, sweat beading on his brow, summoned the sous chef, who confessed under pressure. Kayla had instructed him to add the extract, claiming it was a special request. Brittany, he added, had overseen the order. Ethan's eyes darkened, and he gestured to a security camera above the kitchen pass. "Pull the footage," he said. The manager complied, and the grainy video revealed Kayla's furtive exchange with the chef, Brittany's nod of approval in the background. The evidence was damning, a noose tightening around their scheme. Aaliyah rose, her presence commanding. "The room. Bring them here," she said, her voice a quiet thunder. Brittany and Kayla were ushered forward, their faces a mask of feigned innocence. "Ms. Washington," Brittany began, her voice trembling. "It was an honest error." Aaliyah cut her off, her gaze piercing. "You targeted me, knowing my allergies, to sabotage this dinner. Your error was deliberate." Kayla opened her mouth, but a glare from the manager silenced her. The investors watched, riveted, as the drama unfolded. The manager, his voice shaking, addressed the pair. "You're terminated. Effective now. Leave or I'll call security." Brittany's eyes flashed with defiance, but Kayla's shoulders slumped, her bravado shattered. The crowd, diners, staff, even passers-by, stared as the two were escorted. Out, their aprons discarded like shedskins. Aaliyah turned to the manager, her tone measured. "Please prepare a new dish correctly this time." She resumed her seat, her grace unshaken, and addressed the investors with a smile. "Shall we continue? Our vision for Skyline is worth celebrating." The investors, impressed by her poise, raised their glasses, their confidence in her unshaken. Ethan leaned close, his voice warm. "You handled that like a queen." Aaliyah's eyes sparkled, but her mind was already turning. This was no mere victory, it was a warning. Brittany and Kayla's plot had collapsed, their names now synonymous with disgrace. As the jazz swelled, Aaliyah savored the moment, her authority not just intact but radiant, a beacon in the night. The dining room of Le Ciel pulsed with the aftershocks of a thwarted conspiracy. Candlelight flickered across the faces of investors, their eyes fixed on Aaliyah Washington, whose poise had transformed a near disaster into a display of unshakable authority. The strategic advisor to Skyline Constructs sat at the head of the table, her black dress a stark silhouette against the city's glittering skyline beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Moments ago, Brittany Coleman and Kayla, her former tormentors, had been exposed for slipping a dangerous allergen into her meal, a calculated act of revenge that crumbled under the weight of security footage and Aaliyah's quick thinking. Now, as the disgraced pair stood before a stern-faced manager, the air crackled with the promise of retribution. Aaliyah's victory was not yet complete, but the tide had turned, and she held the reins. Brittany's platinum hair, once a crown of confidence, hung limp under the restaurant's unforgiving lights. Her apron, now a symbol of her fallen status, was clutched in trembling hands. Kayla, her accomplice, stood beside her, eyes darting like a trapped animal's. The manager, a wiry man named Vincent, loomed over them, his voice a low growl. "You're done here?" he said, gesturing to the exit. "Leave now or security will make you." Brittany's lips parted, a protest forming, but Aaliyah's voice cut through like a blade. "No excuses," she said, rising from her seat, her gaze locking onto Brittany's. "You tried to harm me, to ruin this night. You failed." The words were a guillotine, severing Brittany's last shred of defiance. Kayla's face crumpled, her earlier smirk a distant memory. The investors, a mix of venture capitalists and industry titans, watched in silence, their earlier murmurs replaced by a palpable respect. Ethan Carter, the tech CEO seated beside Aaliyah, leaned forward, his presence commanding. His tailored suit and piercing blue eyes exuded an authority that matched Aaliyah's, but his voice carried a chill that made even the manager flinch. "Vincent," Ethan said, his tone deceptively calm. I'm Ethan Carter, CEO of Nexus Innovations. My company hosts quarterly galas here, each worth 7 figures. I want assurances that these two will never work in a reputable venue again. Vincent's eyes widened, the weight of Ethan's influence sinking in. Of course, Mr. Carter, he stammered. I'll ensure their names are blacklisted across our network. Brittany's gasp was audible, a sharp intake of despair. Kayla clutched her arm, whispering, Britt, do something. But Brittany was paralyzed, her bravado shattered by the realization that their plot had not only failed, but had obliterated their futures. Aaliyah's expression remained serene, but her eyes burned with a quiet fire. You thought you could break me, she said, her voice steady, resonant. Instead, you've broken yourselves. The dining room, a theater of power, seemed to contract around the scene. Waitstaff paused mid-step, diners at nearby tables craned their necks, and the soft jazz faded into a distant hum. Aaliyah's words were not just for Brittany and Kayla. They were a declaration to everyone watching, a testament to her resilience. The investors, initially rattled by the allergen incident, now leaned forward, captivated. One, a silver-haired woman in a Chanel suit, nodded approvingly. Ms. Washington, she said, her voice carrying across the table, your composure is remarkable. Skyline is lucky to have you. Aaliyah inclined her head, a gesture of gratitude that masked the storm within. She had faced prejudice before, sly comments in boardrooms, skeptical glances at galas. But this was personal, a direct assault on her life and legacy. Yet, as Brittany and Kayla were escorted out, their aprons discarded like shed dreams, Aaliyah felt not vengeance but clarity. This moment was a pivot, a chance to reshape the narrative. She turned to Ethan, her voice soft but resolute. Thank you, she said, but this can't happen again. Not to me, not to anyone. Ethan's hand brushed hers, a fleeting gesture of solidarity. It won't, he said, his eyes locking onto hers. I'll make sure of it. His words were a promise, backed by the weight of his influence. Vincent, still hovering, assured Aaliyah that a new dish was being prepared, free of allergens, and overseen personally by the head chef. Aaliyah nodded, resuming her seat with a grace that belied the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Let's continue, she said to the investors, her smile radiant. Our vision for Skyline's future is worth this table's full attention. The investors raised their glasses, their earlier hesitation replaced by enthusiasm. To Skyline, one said, and to you, Ms. Washington. The toast was a seal, a commitment to fund the company's next skyscraper, a project Aaliyah had championed. As the new dish arrived, perfectly prepared, Aaliyah took a bite, savoring not just the flavor but the triumph. Brittany and Kayla's footsteps faded down the corridor, their whispers of regret drowned by the clink of glass and the swell of jazz. Outside, the Los Angeles skyline glittered, a canvas of possibility. Aaliyah's mind turned to the future, not just the summit, not just the deal, but a world where such betrayals were unthinkable. She had turned their poison into power, their malice into a stepping stone. The night was hers, and with it the promise of a legacy that no one could tarnish. The morning sun pierced the glass walls of Skyline Construct's executive boardroom, casting a golden sheen across the polished walnut table. Aaliyah Washington stood at its head, a solitary figure in a tailored gray suit, her silhouette framed against the Los Angeles skyline sprawling beyond. The air was heavy with anticipation, the weight of history and ambition pressing against the room's sleek modernity. 24 hours had passed since her triumph at Le Ciel, where she'd turned Brittany and Kayla's malicious plot into a testament to her resilience. Now, as strategic advisor, Aaliyah faced a different battlefield, the boardroom, where skepticism and tradition guarded the gates of change. Her proposal, a sweeping reform to eradicate prejudice from Skyline's culture, was not just a plan but a revolution, and she was its unyielding architect. The board members, a constellation of power, in bespoke suits and stern expressions, watched her with measured curiosity. Marcus Langston, the CEO, sat at the table's far end, his silver hair catching the light. His nod a silent signal to begin. Aaliyah's portfolio lay open before her, its pages a blueprint for transformation, but her true weapon was her presence. Calm, commanding, forged in the fires of adversity. She adjusted a sleek projector, its beam flashing a title slide across the wall. Equity in action, a new era for skyline constructs. The words hung like a challenge, daring the room to resist. Gentlemen, ladies, Aaliyah began, her voice a steady current. We don't just build skyscrapers. We build trust, legacy, and progress. But trust is fragile when prejudice festers within our walls. Her words were deliberate, each one a stone cast into the still waters of the board's complacency. She clicked the projector, revealing a timeline of incidents, her own humiliation at the atrium, the sabotage at Le Ciel, and countless unreported slights whispered among staff. The board shifted, discomfort rippling through their ranks. Aaliyah's gaze swept the room, unflinching. These are not anomalies, she said. They're symptoms of a culture that tolerates bias. Today, I propose we cure it. The slide shifted to her plan. Mandatory equality training for all employees, a digitized guest verification system to eliminate human error, and strict penalties for discriminatory behavior. Aaliyah's voice grew sharper, her passion aflame, that warmed the sterile room. Every employee, from receptionist to executive, will learn to see beyond race, gender, or status, she said. Our new system will use biometric scans and pre-registered invitations, ensuring no one is sidelined by a clerk's whim, and any act of contempt against a colleague or guest will face immediate review, with termination as a consequence. Her words were a gauntlet thrown at the feet of tradition. A board member, a grizzled man with a gold watch, cleared his throat. Ms. Washington, he said, his tone patronizing, this sounds ambitious. Training costs, system overhauls. Can we afford such upheaval? Aaliyah's smile was a blade, polite yet lethal. Can we afford not to? She countered. Our reputation is our currency. The atrium incident nearly cost us credibility. The Le Ciel fiasco could have cost us investors. Equity isn't a cost. It's an investment in our future. Her logic was unassailable, and the man sank back. His objection deflated. Another board member, a woman with sharp eyes, leaned forward. What about resistance? Employees may balk at such stringent measures. Aaliyah nodded, acknowledging the concern. Change is never easy, she said, but resistance fades when leadership stands firm. I'll personally oversee the training, drawing on my experience as strategic advisor to ensure alignment with our vision. Her confidence was a beacon, and the woman's nod signaled a shift in the room's tide. Marcus Langston's voice broke the silence, rich and resonant. Aaliyah, he said, you faced bias head-on and turned it into strength. This proposal, it's bold, but it's you. He glanced at the board, his authority a quiet command. I see a company redefined by integrity, led by a woman who embodies it. What say you? The board murmured, their skepticism melting under Aaliyah's resolve and Marcus's endorsement. One by one they nodded, a chorus of assent that crescendoed into a unanimous vote. Approved, Marcus declared, his gavel a symbolic strike. Aaliyah, you'll lead this initiative. Make Skyline a model of inclusion. Aaliyah's heart soared, but her expression remained composed, a mask of professionalism. Thank you, she said, her voice steady. This is not about retribution. It's about building a future where every voice is heard. She clicked the projector off, the screen fading to black, but the room seemed brighter, as if her vision had kindled a new light. The board rose, their applause a rare tribute, but Aaliyah's mind was already racing. She saw training sessions, packed with staff, digital kiosks humming in the atrium, and a culture where no one would endure what she had. As the board dispersed, Marcus approached, his hand extended. You're not just shaping strategy, he said, his eyes warm. You're reshaping us. Aaliyah shook his hand, her grip firm. It's only the beginning, she replied, her voice a promise. She gathered her portfolio, her steps echoing as she left the boardroom. The skyline beyond the glass was a canvas of possibility, each tower a testament to what could be built with courage and conviction. Outside, the atrium buzzed with its usual rhythm, but Aaliyah saw it anew, a space to be transformed. The velvet, ropes once barriers, would soon be relics. The reception desk, once a stage for prejudice, would become a beacon of fairness. She paused, her gaze lingering on the chandelier's prisms, their rainbows a metaphor for the diversity she'd champion. The battle was won, but the war for equity was just beginning, and Aaliyah Washington was its unrelenting general. The atrium of skyline constructs gleamed under the Los Angeles sun, its marble floors reflecting a mosaic of light that danced across the soaring glass walls. Months had passed since Aaliyah Washington's battle in this very space, where she'd shattered the chains of prejudice with a single call. Now, as strategic advisor, she stood at the heart of a transformed empire, her tailored blazer a quiet emblem of her authority. The velvet ropes that once barred her path were gone, replaced by sleek digital kiosks humming with efficiency. The air, once thick with whispered slights, now carried the warmth of genuine greetings. Aaliyah's vision, forged in the crucible of humiliation and triumph, had reshaped Skyline into a beacon of equity, and today she surveyed her legacy with a heart full of resolve. The morning was alive with activity. A family of tourists, their faces a tapestry of ethnicities, approached the reception desk, where a young staffer named Priya offered a radiant smile. "Welcome to Skyline Constructs," Priya said, her voice free of the cold formality that had once greeted Aaliyah. A biometric scanner blinked green, confirming their tour reservation, and they were ushered toward an interactive exhibit of the company's skyscrapers. Aaliyah watched, her lips curving into a smile. The Guest Equity Index, a metric she'd championed, now soared above 90%, a testament to a culture where no one was sidelined. The atrium, once a stage for her degradation, had become a sanctuary of inclusion. Her journey had not been easy. The reforms she'd proposed in the boardroom, mandatory equality training, digitized verification, strict anti-bias policies, had met resistance. Some employees grumbled, clinging to old hierarchies. Others feared change would disrupt profits. But Aaliyah, with Marcus Langston's unwavering support, had been relentless. She led training sessions herself, standing before packed auditoriums, her voice a clarion call. "We're not just architects of buildings," she'd said, her eyes sweeping the room. "We're architects of fairness." Her words, drawn from her own scars, disarmed skeptics. The new system, with its automated checks, eliminated human prejudice, and within weeks complaints plummeted. Skyline's reputation, once teetered by the atrium scandal, now shone brighter than its glass facade. Aaliyah's impact rippled beyond the company. Forbes had crowned her Leader of the Year, her face gracing the cover, her story, a black woman rising against adversity, inspiring millions. Industry journals praised Skyline's turnaround, noting a surge in client contracts and employee morale. Yet, for Aaliyah, the true measure of success was personal. She walked through the atrium, pausing at a digital mural titled Faces of Skyline, where portraits of staff and visitors glowed. Her own image, discreetly included, was a quiet nod to her role as both leader and symbol. Beneath it, a plaque read, "Inclusion is the foundation of progress." Her heart swelled, but her mind remained sharp, ever vigilant for the next challenge. The ghosts of Brittany and Kayla lingered only in whispers. Their names, blacklisted across Los Angeles' hospitality scene, were cautionary tales. Rumors swirled of Brittany working odd jobs, her arrogance humbled. While Kayla had left the city, her bravado extinguished. Aaliyah felt no malice, only a distant pity. Their plot at Le Ciel, meant to destroy her, had instead cemented her legend. The investors from that night, awed by her grace under fire, had poured millions into Skyline's next project, a sustainable tower she'd designed, now rising on the city's edge. Ethan Carter, her ally that evening, had become a trusted partner, his tech firm collaborating on the tower's smart systems. As noon approached, Aaliyah stepped into Le Ciel, the restaurant where her enemies had fallen. The space, once a battlefield, was now a haven, its staff a diverse tapestry trained in respect. Ethan awaited her at a corner table, his smile warm as he raised a glass of sparkling water. "To you," he said, his voice rich with admiration. "You didn't just change Skyline, you changed the game." Aaliyah clinked her glass against his, her eyes meeting his with a spark of shared purpose. "It's not my victory alone," she said. "It's ours and everyone who believed in better." Their conversation turned to the future. Aaliyah shared plans for a Skyline mentorship program, targeting underrepresented youth, her voice alive with passion. Ethan listened, his nod a silent vow to support her. The city beyond the windows glittered, each skyscraper a testament to what courage could build. Aaliyah's thoughts drifted to her mother, whose wisdom had guided her through every storm. "You don't demand respect, you demonstrate it." She had done more than demonstrate. She had redefined it, carving a path for those who'd follow. Back at Skyline, Aaliyah paused in her office, a minimalist space overlooking the atrium. A framed Forbes cover hung beside her desk, but her gaze fell on a leather journal, its pages filled with her reflections. She opened it, pen in hand, and wrote, "We built more than towers. We built dignity. Where courage meets compassion, progress rises." The words were her creed, a lighthouse for the road ahead. She closed the journal, her eyes lifting to the skyline, where her tower climbed toward the heavens. The atrium below buzzed with life, its new staff a reflection of the world, diverse, vibrant, united. Aaliyah stepped to the window, her silhouette a quiet promise. She had faced prejudice and turned it into power, humiliation into hope. Skyline Constructs was no longer just a company, it was a movement, and Aaliyah Washington was its heart. As the sun dipped, casting a golden glow across the city, she knew this was only the beginning, a new dawn radiant with possibility. And so Aaliyah Washington's journey, from defiance in the face of prejudice to architect of a new dawn, leaves us inspired. Her story isn't just about triumph, it's a call to challenge injustice and build a fairer world. What did you feel as Aaliyah turned humiliation into power? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear how her courage resonates with you. A huge thank you for joining us on this gripping tale. Your support fuels our storytelling, so hit that subscribe button to catch more epic journeys. Where are you watching from? LA, London, or beyond? Let us know. Until next time, keep shining like Aaliyah, and we'll meet again for another story that'll spark your soul. Stay bold, stay inspired.